On our anniversary, my husband raised his glass, looked at me and said, "Marrying you was my biggest mistake." I stood there stunned, my heart quietly breaking. The next day, I didn't beg or shout. I closed our accounts, sold everything, and left him with nothing but regret. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. That's not even the worst part. The worst part is what everyone else did after he said it. I always thought the end of a marriage would feel like a collapse, loud and messy and tragic. Turns out it sounds like silver forks, small laughs, polite clinks of crystal, and a woman 2 tables over whispering behind her hand, "Oh my God, did you hear that?" You think you know a person after 7 years. You think you know a town after 3. You think you know yourself, and then your husband takes a match to your life so casually you realize you have been standing in gasoline for months. Let me walk you through the night everything split. The Maple Ridge Country Club likes to pretend it's old money, even though the subdivision it sits in was still raw dirt when I was in college. They've got dark wood paneling and framed black and white golf photos, like they're hiding prohibition secrets instead of Tuesday trivia nights and freezer-burned shrimp. The dining room smells like fake lemon polish and grilled salmon with too much butter. Lauren always says it smells elevated. I always think it smells like somebody Febreza'd a yacht. Lauren is my husband's older sister. If Maple Ridge had a queen, it would be her. She's 38, wears her hair in that glossy suburban shell that doesn't move even in a cross breeze, and speaks like she's offering a TED talk instead of an insult. She's the kind of woman who calls ahead to have our usual table held, and people actually do it. She is also the kind of woman who has told me at least 6 times that Jake could have had anyone, and then looks at me, waits, and smiles like she just complimented me. Jake is my husband. Jake is 34. He is a real estate agent, but if you ask him, he builds lifestyle. He has a smile that he turns on like a ring light. It works. People trust Jake on impact. Women trust Jake on impact. I used to trust Jake on impact. Me, I'm Emma. I am 32. Graphic designer, remote. I work for an Italian luxury furniture brand that sells $9,000 chairs with names like Luna 4. I spend my days adjusting kerning and telling wealthy men in linen shirts that no, their logo cannot pop more without looking like a juice bar. Everyone in Maple Ridge thinks I do art on my laptop. Jake tells people I tinker with graphics. He says it like a hobby I do between Pilates and watching morning talk shows. Here's the part he leaves out. Last year, I made more money than he did. Anyway, the dinner. Lauren planned it for us, which means it was for her. Long table, white tablecloth, 6 extra people who had no business being at our anniversary. She said it made sense to roll celebration into networking. That's Maple Ridge code for help Jake land more listings. I walked in wearing a black dress I bought myself, hair done, makeup done, feeling almost proud that we'd made it 7 years through mortgages and in-laws and his ambition and my timelines. I thought we were clinking glasses because we'd survived. I was in a sentimental mood. That's on me. At the table, Lauren, of course, sitting like she paid the lease on Jake's smile. Claire and her husband. Claire used to be my closest friend here. Now she's Lauren's shadow, which is interesting because 6 months ago, Lauren called her sweet but limited, and now they go to bar together and pretend they don't gossip. There was also Ben, Jake's favorite mortgage guy, who thinks he's in finance when really he's just good at telling young couples that granite is an investment in yourselves. Ben always smells like cologne you can only buy at airports. And then there were 2 of Jake's clients. A couple. Rich, nervous, still wearing their visitor badges from the tech campus they drove in from. The woman's name was Amber. Last initial C. I caught that on the menus Lauren had custom printed with Happy 7th Jake plus Emma, in gold script. I thought that was sweet at first. I did. I actually thought, oh, she did menus. She cares. I am an idiot. Jake was already lit up, talking fast, hands moving, loving his own story about landing the Brookline property, even though the seller was basically feral. He said feral like it was charming. He loves calling other people difficult. It makes him look like a fixer. You wouldn't believe, he told Amber, the hoops I jumped through. This town, it's like, no offense, babe, but it's like living with a committee. He smiled at me like we were in on the joke. We were not. Emma does the creative, he said, tossing it out like a mint. She makes my listings look cinematic. She'll sit there for hours pushing pixels around. She's obsessive. I'm like, babe, it's just a flyer. Everyone laughed. I smiled politely, because that's what you do, right? You smile politely when someone you love shrinks you in public. You laugh because if you don't, the table goes quiet, and people look down, and suddenly you're the problem. You learn fast in Maple Ridge that nobody wants to sit near the problem because it stains. You become contagious. I had no interest in being the contagious woman at my own anniversary dinner. Ben leaned in toward Jake and muttered something about inspection numbers. They did that a lot, these low, fast sidebars like men in a crime show. I used to think it made them feel important. Tonight, I realized it also lets them talk without us hearing. Except Jake's wrist was right there next to me, and he'd turned his Apple Watch so the face lit up, and that's how I saw it. Amber C. Still thinking about last night. When can I see you alone? I didn't move. I didn't gasp. Didn't snatch his hand. Didn't hurl my water in his face. Didn't do any of the dramatic things people think they'll do when they finally see what they've always been afraid to see. I just watched that little bubble of text appear and then fade like it had always belonged to me. Here's where you might say, Emma, he's sitting right there texting another woman with you next to him during your anniversary dinner. Why didn't you get up and walk out? Because you don't walk out in Maple Ridge. You mark. You take notes. You count which of your friends knew before you did. You memorize who laughs and who looks away. You figure out who's already on his side and who might pretend to be on yours. You don't storm off. You stay at the table because the table is where stories get written. Lauren tapped her spoon to her glass like we were in a movie. Everyone, she said, if I could just have a second, I want to honor my favorite couple. She smiled at me. That was generous of her, since I come in maybe fourth on her list of favorite people in any category. Jake stood. Of course he did. He loved standing. He held his glass, and his smile was that smooth real estate grin I have watched him practice in the mirror. People think I'm joking when I say that. I am not. To Emma, he said. Everyone awed. I felt my shoulders loosen a tiny bit, like maybe I'd overread the watch thing, like maybe he was going to make some dumb joke and then correct it with a cute line about loyalty and getting through hard seasons. Marriage is work, blah, blah. Couples do that in front of other couples to remind themselves why they're still pretending. I thought he might do that. He lifted his glass a little higher and looked at me. Not through me, at me. His eyes were bright and a little glossy. He'd had 2 bourbons already. Jake gets honest when he's on bourbon. Jake thinks honesty is the same thing as cruelty, and that being brutally honest makes you brave. He confuses lack of kindness with strength. So, here we go. Marrying you, he said, was my biggest mistake. Silence. I don't mean real silence. I mean that weird restaurant hush where you can still hear forks and a chair scooting somewhere and a server whispering, sorry, near the kitchen door. The kind of hush where people pretend they didn't hear what they definitely heard, so you can both walk away later and rewrite it. Claire laughed first. Oh my God, Jake, she said, hand on his arm, like she wanted to calm him, but her eyes were on me, watching, studying. I realized in that second that Claire had known something was coming tonight, and she'd come anyway. She had her hair curled tighter than usual and was wearing her best wrap dress. She wasn't here to comfort me. She was here to see if I would crack. Jake grinned like he'd told a great joke. "No, but seriously," he said, and held up his other hand like, "Calm down, ladies. I'm just a humble truth-teller. We got married so fast, babe. You remember? We didn't think it through. We were kids. I was building momentum, and you were still figuring yourself out. And I let you, what? Talk me into playing small?" I stared at him. My nails dug half-moons into my napkin. I kept my face pleasant. I think that annoyed him more than if I'd screamed. He went on. "I'm just saying it's been an education. I've learned a lot about sacrifice." He gave this little sigh, like a martyr who just dragged a cart up a mountain. "And about what I need. I'm at a point in my career where I can't have chaos at home. I have to show up polished every single day. It's constant pressure. You have no idea what that's like." Something in me tilted. There it was. There's always the line, isn't there? The one that tells you what the person standing across from you really believes about you. Not the rehearsed stuff. Not the Instagram captions. Not the "love you, babe" in front of waitstaff. The real core. His was that. "You have no idea what that's like. I have managed full brand guidelines for Italian luxury launches across 3 time zones, while he paced our open kitchen whining about an appraisal coming in low. But sure, I have no idea." He lifted his glass even higher. "So," he said, smile wide, eyes on me, "to 7 years of learning what works and what absolutely doesn't." Ben laughed. Lauren did the soft gasp she does when she wants attention. The tech couple smiled politely, in that tight way strangers do when they've just watched a plate slide slowly off the counter. Amber watched Jake. Not me. Jake. I felt something inside me go calm. Not numb. Calm, like a line finally locked into place. I raised my glass. "To our 7-year learning experience," I said. I said it pleasantly. I said it like I was in on the joke. I even smiled back at him, and I watched his shoulders relax because, in his mind, that meant we were okay. He thought I'd just signed a silent agreement to let him publicly insult me and then smooth it over for him. He had no idea I had just marked the first move. Everyone drank. The servers pretended nothing strange had happened. Lauren leaned across the table and squeezed my hand, like she was on my side. "You know he adores you," she murmured. "Of course," I said. "I'm almost impressed by how fast rich suburbs metabolize cruelty. They can watch a man smack his wife's dignity flat in front of them and still go, 'So, are you guys going to the fall gala?' 5 minutes later, dinner resumed like nothing happened, which is to say people worked very hard to pretend they weren't buzzing. Jake went back to talking about inventory squeeze in the Tri-County area. Ben started ranting about appraisers who don't get premium finishes. Claire leaned in close to Lauren and whispered behind her wine glass, like second graders behind a locker, and both of them looked at me and then looked away. By the time dessert came, they had already started rewriting it. It was Jake being dramatic. It was, you know how couples tease. It was, he's under stress. I watched the story shift right in front of me, and here's what I realized. They didn't just think it was okay. They liked it. It fed them. It let them feel cleaner. If Jake could paint me as the unstable, needy wife holding him back, then Lauren could keep acting like Maple Ridge's first lady. Ben could keep circling financially around Jake like a shark around a boat. Claire could keep getting invited, and Amber could keep texting a married man without feeling like a villain. If I was the mess, then they were all saints. Cool. On the drive home, Jake acted confused that I wasn't chatty. He drove with one hand, phone in the other, thumb flicking through messages like nothing important had happened. "Hey," he said finally, "you're not going to be weird about that toast, right? About you calling me your biggest mistake in front of your clients." He scoffed. "Oh my God, you're so sensitive. It was clearly a joke." I swear, Emma, this is exactly what I mean. You twist everything. You make it drama. You make it about you. You don't understand how hard I'm working. I'm out here every day building something real and you're... He waved his phone hand around like that finished the sentence. You're designing fonts. Logos, I said. Same thing. I watched his face while he talked. He wasn't even looking at me. He was looking at his reflection in the window, practicing anger like he practices his smile. He actually believed it. That was maybe the wildest part. He believed his own story. We pulled into the driveway. Our house sat there, glowing that warm, HOA-approved exterior light, calm and proud and beige. Maple Ridge has rules about exterior paint, mailbox style, and acceptable porch decor. We are allowed pumpkins in October, but no political yard signs. You can hang a seasonal wreath, but not something aggressive. I once watched a board member send an email about a wreath that had too much glitter. That's where I live. Inside, the kitchen smelled faintly like lemon cleaner. I had wiped the counters before we left. Jake tossed his keys, jacket and phone on the island like a teenager. His Apple Watch chimed. I glanced. He didn't bother turning it over this time. He was so sure I would just keep smiling, keep absorbing, keep being the cool wife who gets it. Amber C. Can't stop thinking about that showing. Your trouble, I poured water from the fridge filter and watched the glass fill. I took my time. I didn't hurl it at him. I didn't scream, "Who is Amber?" I didn't demand anything. I just watched the cubes drift and settle. Are you mad? He said finally. His tone had shifted. He wasn't combative now. He was managerial. Jake has two voices, charming and supervising. This was supervising, the one he uses with junior agents when he wants to coach them in a way that still keeps him on top. He uses it on me lately. Because if you're mad, I really don't have the bandwidth for a whole meltdown, Emma. I have a sunrise showing, and Ben is already on me about numbers. I can't be up all night talking feelings. Sure, I said. You know what I mean, he said. Can you please just be mature about this? I took a sip of water. I am being mature about this. He relaxed. Thank you. See? This is why we work. We get it. We're adults. We. That word coming out of his mouth, like we were teammates, like we were still rowing in the same direction. My ring felt heavier than usual. He walked upstairs without saying goodnight. I stayed in the kitchen a long time. I looked at his phone on the counter. I looked at my glass, at the slow drip of condensation onto the quartz I had picked and paid for. I thought about the way Lauren had squeezed my hand like, you know he adores you, and the way Claire had watched me like a hawk waiting for weakness. I thought about how Amber didn't look at me once. I thought about Jake's little speech, you have no idea what that's like, and I felt something slide in and lock. Here is something true that nobody tells you. Revenge is not rage. Revenge is paperwork. At first, I thought I wanted to scream. I deserved a scene. I deserved at least that. I pictured sweeping everything off the counter in one furious gesture like a drama lead on streaming. But then I pictured something better. I pictured the look on his face when our house turns into his house, and then into not his house. I pictured Lauren's perfect voice shaking in public. I pictured Ben's little smirk disappearing. I pictured Maple Ridge porch lights flicking on, one by one, as the story spread, and every perfect neighbor peeking through their custom shutters thinking, oh, so that's what was really going on over there. I rinsed my glass. I put it in the dishwasher. I wiped the counter where my ring had left a faint circle of condensation. Then I went upstairs and slid into bed next to the man who had just announced to a room full of witnesses that I was his biggest mistake. He was already asleep. Of course he was. Jake can fall asleep anywhere, any time, like a toddler after a long swim. 5 minutes after detonating 7 years of my life, he was snoring soft little puffs against my pillow like nothing had happened. I lay there on my side, eyes open, staring at the faint green blink of the baby monitor we never took down after our foster placement fell through last year. We were not the right long-term match. That's what the agency said. Jake told everyone at the time that it was my anxiety that scared them off. Lauren told me, privately, that some women just aren't meant to be mothers. It's okay. I let that slide. I will not be letting that slide anymore. In the dark, I started making a list. Not an emotional list, a logistics list. First item, bank. Second, title paperwork. Third, HOA. Fourth, Maple Ridge wine. Wednesday, where Lauren performs being kind and Claire pretends to listen. Fifth, Ben. Sixth, Jake's entire glossy little world. He thinks I'll cry. He thinks I'll beg him to stay. He thinks I'll say, "Tell me what I can do to fix it, Jake. Please, Jake, I can change, Jake." He thinks I'll do that, and then I'll keep designing his flyers and pretending not to see Amber's emoji. Instead, I'm going to take his entire life apart, with witnesses, in daylight. The morning after the toast felt normal in that cheap way a hotel lamp feels normal. You know the kind. Yellow light, plastic shade, pretending to be luxury. That was our kitchen. Sunlight came in through the slider, the coffee maker hummed, and Jake walked around like nothing nuclear had happened the night before. I sat at the island and watched him move through the room like he still owned it. He still thought we were on we. He was humming. That was new. He only hummed when his ego was fed. I guess publicly calling me his biggest mistake counted as calories. "Hey," he said, checking his Apple Watch, "are you using the joint card today? I have to grab catering for that Brookline open house. Amber's bringing a friend who might list. I want it to look high-end without looking try-hard, you know?" I said, because that sounded safer than the first 10 answers that came to mind. He poured coffee into his Maple Ridge Realty Yeti tumbler like he was a hard-working husband heading into another long day at the grind. He didn't even bother with the house mugs anymore, just branded gear. The Yeti said, "Maple Ridge Realty, experience matters." I stared at the word experience and thought, you have no idea how much. "You good?" he said without looking at me. "Great," I said. He nodded, satisfied, like I'd passed a check. He grabbed his keys and kissed the air near my head, then left. The door shut. I waited. 20 seconds. 30. I watched his car back out of the driveway through the kitchen window. I watched it roll past our perfect HOA-compliant mailbox and around the cul-de-sac curve. Neighbor porch cam lights blinked to life like little eyes following him. Maple Ridge is wired tighter than an airport. Everybody's got smart doorbells, driveway cams, motion-activated lighting. You can't sneeze without ending up in someone's neighborhood group chat. The privacy here is all an illusion, which, by the way, is something nobody warns you about when you upgrade to a planned community. Safe just means surveillance with landscaping. I waited one more beat to make sure his taillights were gone. Then I opened my laptop. I didn't shake. I thought I might. I thought I'd cry even. That would be the good wife script, right? Sit there puffy-faced in a robe, scrolling through his messages, clinging to hope like a throw blanket, whispering, "Why would he do this to me?" into a mug of cold coffee. That is not what happened. I opened our banking app. Here is something boring and important. Boring is how you win. Jake loves to peacock. He'll spend 20 minutes telling strangers about the imported tile in our bathroom and the hand-blown pendant lights over the island. He'll talk about elevated curb appeal, like he invented driveways. He does not love paperwork. He lets me handle it. And then later, in front of people, he reframes that as, "Emma's just better at the boring stuff." Translation: I do the financial adulting, he takes credit for stability. Our joint checking, where groceries and club dinners and HOA dues live, had just under 43 grand in it. Our savings, the one we agreed would be house reinvestment only, emergency only, never touch unless we both say yes, had 81. Our brokerage account, which was under both our names, the one we'd built over 5 years, was at 146. He'd always liked to pretend his commissions were what funded those numbers. It's true he had big months. It's also true he had dry months, where he looked at me and said, "Can you float us till I close on Brookline? You know how seasonal this market is." He loved the word seasonal. It made cash flow panic sound like ski season. I pulled up last year's deposits and scrolled. He had no idea how obvious it looked on paper. Retainer, Milano Furnishings LLC, $6,500 retainer. Milano Furnishings LLC, $6,500 wire. Milano Furnishings LLC, $11,000, freelance branding, interiorconcepts.tit, $4,800, Jake commission, Maple Ridge Realty, $2,300. I'm not saying he didn't work, I'm saying he didn't carry us the way he told everyone he did. He liked the story where he dragged me along. He kept that story shiny. He told that story to Lauren so she could repeat it at Pilates and get sympathy credit for helping her brother support his artist wife. Cute. I stared at the numbers and felt calm in a way that almost scared me. Not rage, not heartbreak, focus, like lining up print crops on a high-res file. He said I was holding him back. He said I had no idea what pressure looked like. Cool. Watch me handle pressure before lunch. First thing, passwords. I already had them. He thinks we're a team means I should share mine and remember his. He uses the same 3 variations for everything. I don't even need to guess anymore. I could probably log into his dentist portal. Second thing, the house. The house is in both our names. People assume Jake put it all together because he's in real estate. They think he negotiated some insider deal and charmed a seller and got us our Maple Ridge spot with pure swagger. No, Jake did stage the walkthrough like a magician revealing a dove from his sleeve. But the down payment? Me. Mostly me. About 70% me, if we want to get irritatingly accurate. My Milano contract had just renewed that spring, and the signing bonus went straight into escrow. Jake said, "We're building a future, babe." I said, "Yep." What I should have said was, "Put that in writing." I opened the folder I keep on my desktop labeled Tax Docs. Inside, I had scans of the deed and the mortgage. I pulled up the deed and read it again. I already knew what it said, but it felt good to read it with fresh eyes. Both names, equal rights of survivorship, which basically means neither of us can just boot the other. But it also means either of us can initiate a sale and accept an offer if the price meets agreed thresholds from prior written discussions, and those discussions live in email. You know who writes things down? Me. You know who doesn't? Jake. My stomach got tight and light at the same time. It wasn't nerves, it was something clearer. I had leverage, and I hadn't even stepped out of my kitchen yet. Then I did something petty, I'll own it. I opened Venmo. This is where I saw the thing that made my jaw tense so hard my ear clicked. Transfers between Jake and Ben. Staging help, 450 ons. Quick wire, fix later, $1,000. Floor plan retouch, hush, $700. Just float till we close, man, $200. Hush, hush. So this is how Jake talks to his mortgage guy when I'm not around. Not, "Hey, brother, can you cover me?" Not, "Can you spot me bridge money?" But shorthand, that sounds like they're sliding chips across felt. I sat back and stared at that word and thought, that is not how you talk if your finances are clean enough for Lauren's taste. Lauren cares about appearances more than she cares about food. She basically snacks on reputation. I realized right then that if I drop screenshots of this into the Maple Ridge Wives chat, the unofficial one, the one that pretends not to exist, Lauren's little image of, "My brother is a trusted advisor, integrity first," would melt like cheap mascara in the rain. File that for later. At 9:12 a.m., I texted my bank rep. Her name is Dana. Dana likes me better than Jake, because when we refinanced last year, Jake called her sweetheart. Dana is not his sweetheart. Dana remembers that. "Hey Dana," I wrote, I need to move joint funds to a personal account and freeze access to the joint card for the next 72 hours. Is that something you can help with if I come in this morning? Dana wrote back in under a minute. Of course. Come before noon and bring ID. You're on the account so you can authorize a freeze on card access and wire out funds. Is everything okay? Peachy, I wrote. While I waited for the shower to heat, I practiced my face in the mirror. Do not laugh, I am serious. Lauren practices her concerned face. I've seen it. It has stages. Stage 1, tilted head, warm eyes. How are you? Stage 2, parted lips, soft brow. Oh wow, that's a lot. Stage 3, slightly firmer mouth, subtle nod. I'm here for you, followed by telling everyone everything. I needed a face that said normal errand, not revenge spree. I went with neutral professional, hair in a low knot, black sweater, clean jeans, nothing dramatic, nothing that would later become, she showed up wild-eyed. I wanted Dana to remember calm, in case Jake ever tried to spin this into Emma went nuts. By 10:05, I had transferred most of the joint checking into a personal account with just my name. The savings, too. Dana clicked and typed and didn't ask questions. She just said, "These things happen," in a voice that suggested she's seen men in Maple Ridge do worse, and I believed her. Then she said casually, "Do you want to remove his debit access for now?" I smiled like we were talking about weather. "That would be great," I said. "Here is a tiny quiet joy I wish on every woman who has ever smiled through disrespect in a dining room." The sound of a banker saying, "Okay, his card is disabled." When I left the branch, I did not feel guilty. You might think I would. I didn't. I watched moms in yoga pants push strollers past the coffee shop like nothing in their lives had shifted, and I thought, I just moved more money in 30 minutes than Jake has ever moved without asking me first. My heart felt steady. My steps felt steady. I didn't feel fragile. I felt awake. On my way home, I swung by the Maple Ridge clubhouse because I already knew who would be there. The 9 a.m. yoga girls coming out of class and pretending they weren't racing each other to see who could gossip first in the parking lot. Maple Ridge yoga is mostly stretching, a little breathing, and a whole lot of information transfer. Tessa calls it mental wellness. I call it the stock exchange. Tessa was there with her mat rolled under her arm, ponytail perfect, sipping a green drink the color of pond water. She lives 3 houses down from us and knows the make, model, and license plate of every car that's ever lingered in our cul-de-sac for more than 10 minutes. "Emma," she said, voice 2 octaves higher than usual. That's how you know someone already talked about you. "Hey girl, you okay?" I love how girls like Tessa say girl. It's sugar wrapped around a hook. "I'm great," I said. Her smile flickered for half a second. My calm wasn't the answer she was hoping for. She wanted messy. She wanted mascara tracks and a story she could package as concern. She wanted to check in on you, babe, in the Maple Ridge Facebook group and score compassion points in front of Lauren. "Heard you guys had, a spicy dinner last night," she said, laughing like we were talking about jalapeno margaritas and not the public shredding of my marriage. I tilted my head. "Who told you that?" She blinked. "Oh, Claire mentioned, you know how Claire is, she exaggerates. She just said Jake was funny, super honest. And I was like, wow, honesty, goals, and... Honesty, goals." I smiled. "Yeah," I said, "he's a regular motivational speaker." Tessa leaned in. She smelled like coconut lotion and nerves. "Men, right?" she whispered, eyes sparkling like this was a pajama party secret. "Honestly, I told Justin last night, I was like, if you ever talk to me like that in public, I would go off. I would literally lose it." I nodded. "You would." She blinked again. I hadn't given her the script she wanted. Right? I should have gone off. I can't believe I didn't go off. She couldn't figure out what to do with me being controlled. Controlled women are hard to spread rumors about. You can't attach unhinged to a woman who sounds like she's about to file quarterly taxes. Lauren appeared then, like she'd been summoned by the scent of conversation about herself. She's good at that. She has this suburban telepathy. If her name floats through the air in a 3-house radius, she materializes. "There you are," she said, like she'd been worried. She even touched my arm. Lauren loves public touching. It photographs well. "Here I am," I said. Tessa stepped back a little, like an intern making room for the CEO. "We're all talking about last night," Lauren said. "You know how this neighborhood is. People overreact. I told everyone you guys just have that edgy humor." That was fast, even for her. She hadn't even waited a full morning before starting cleanup for Jake. "Edgy," I said. She gave me her stage 1 concern face, tilted head, warm eyes. "Jake's under so much strain," she whispered. "You know how he feels responsible for everyone. He's basically taking care of this whole block. You can't imagine the pressure he's under." There it was again. "You can't imagine." I kept my voice light. "Interesting, because from where I sit, we're co-sponsoring most of that pressure." Her smile tightened. She did not like that I answered in math. "I'm just saying," Lauren said softly, "maybe next time you don't give him that look at the table. You know the look. He's sensitive. He felt attacked." Tessa made a sympathetic face for Lauren, not for me. I watched that, filed it. Tessa just told me who she would testify for if this turned into a social trial. It wasn't me. I leaned in, close enough that only Lauren could hear me. "Small question," I murmured. "When exactly did you know about Amber?" Lauren's eyes flicked. That was all. Just a flick, fast, a twitch of surprise and calculation. Then she smoothed it. "Excuse me?" "Amber," I said, still mild, with the little heart emoji next to her name in his phone, the one who apparently had a very inspiring house tour. "When did you find out about her? Before or after you planned our anniversary dinner as a networking event and sat me next to her?" Lauren didn't blink this time. She just stared at me with a kind of blank patience, like I was a toddler throwing a store tantrum. That's her power move. Silence plus superiority. It works on most people. It did not work on me today. Finally, she said, "Emma, men have needs. Jake is extremely high demand right now. You've been kind of distracted with work." There it was, delivered like a diagnosis. "You've been distracted." Translation: "This is ultimately your fault." Something warm and ugly curled low in my chest. Not panic, not hurt. Something sharper. The kind of feeling that makes you lean forward instead of back. I smiled at her. "Thank you," I said quietly. Lauren blinked. "For what?" "For telling me you knew," I said. "Before last night." Her mouth opened, closed. I stepped around her, still smiling, still calm. My voice stayed pleasant enough that Tessa could report it later without adding, "Emma totally snapped." That matters. "Oh, and Lauren," I said, turning back just enough to make sure she saw my eyes. "One more friendly tip. Stop trying to get me labeled unstable. I saw the text to Jake, the ones about we can get her to sign off if we frame it right. You're sloppy. Be smarter." Her face went rigid. Tessa's head swung between us like she was courtside. "Have a great day," I told them. Then I walked away. My hands weren't even shaking. On the path back to my car, I could feel Lauren stare between my shoulder blades like a hairdryer on low. She had not expected that. She had expected me to crumble or plead. She had expected me to say, "Is he serious about her?" Or, "Do you think he still loves me?" She had expected me to ask for mercy. What she got instead was notice. And that was the moment I realized I wasn't just going to take Jake apart. I was going to salt the ground under everyone who helped him. By noon, I had moved the money, put a freeze on his card, and politely warned his sister that I was aware of her part. I hadn't raised my voice once. I hadn't cried once. I hadn't thrown anything. I hadn't begged anyone to choose me. At 12:32 p.m., when I pulled into our driveway, my phone buzzed. Ben. Not my Ben. Jake's Ben. Mr. Airport, Cologne. Need to talk about Brookline numbers before Lauren hears wrong version. You home? I stared at the message for a solid 5 seconds, then smiled so wide I felt it in my ears. Before Lauren hears wrong version, so Ben was scared of Lauren. Good. That meant leverage I hadn't even asked for yet. Sure, I typed from Jake's synced iPad inside the kitchen once I was through the door. Swing by. He wrote back instantly. 20-minute, perfect, I thought. I wasn't done yet. Ben's car pulled up exactly 18 minutes later, silver sedan, buffed within an inch of its life, engine humming the smug kind of quiet that costs extra. He didn't bother knocking. Men like Ben assume entry is their birthright. He just opened the door and called out, "Jake." I stood at the kitchen island with a mug of coffee, calm as a Sunday morning. "He's out," I said. Ben stopped short when he saw me. He wasn't used to seeing women without their hostess smile. "Oh, Emma, I figured he'd told you I was coming." "He tells me a lot of things," I said. "None of them seem to be true lately." He smirked, the way he probably does at closings when he thinks charm equals control. "Rough night? Why? You hear something?" His mouth flickered. "Small town. People talk." "They do. Which is interesting because you were there when he said it." Ben shrugged and crossed to the fridge without asking, pulled out a bottle of sparkling water, and twisted the cap. "Jake's dramatic. He doesn't mean half the stuff that comes out of his mouth." "Which half?" He smiled like I'd proven his point. "You're funny, that's good. Humor keeps things from getting messy." "Messy like hush money transfers?" That landed. The smile froze halfway. "Excuse me?" I gestured toward the counter. My phone lay there, screen lit with a spreadsheet I'd printed from the joint account. "These are interesting. Staging help. Quick wire. Hush. You're very creative with memos." He took a long drink, trying to act unfazed. "That's between business partners. Not sure why you're going through private stuff." "Because it's not private if the funds come out of accounts I funded. You and Jake have been playing accountant without the math." He set the bottle down too hard. "Emma, this is grown-up business. Don't make something out of nothing." "Nothing seems to cost a lot around here." He leaned forward. "Listen, you're upset. I get it. He said something stupid last night. Don't blow up his career because you're hurt." "Is that what he told you? That I'm hurt?" Ben gave a small shrug, casual as lint. "You know how women get when—" I didn't let him finish. "Say that again," I said, quiet enough that he had to lean closer. He blinked. When women what?" He straightened, smirk returning. "Emotional." That was the moment I stopped feeling calm. Not rage, focus again, but sharper, colder. I reached over and picked up my phone, tapped the voice recorder, and set it face down on the counter. "Ben," I said lightly, "clarify something for me. When you move money between you and Jake, does Lauren know?" "Of course she doesn't. She'd micromanage everything." "So she doesn't know about the float accounts." "Stop calling it that. It's temporary cash flow. We settle it." "Got it," I said. "You settle it. Later, secretly." "Good to know." He frowned, finally noticing my phone. "What's that?" "Proof you just said that out loud." For the first time since he walked in, he lost his footing. "You can't record me without—" "Sure I can," I said. "This is my kitchen. You walked in without knocking. Consider it an accident." He moved around the island toward me. "Delete it." I smiled. "No. Emma, I'm serious." "So am I. Let's take this to the garage. I'll show you the paperwork you're pretending doesn't exist." He hesitated. "Fine, but this is ridiculous." "Probably," I said, and led the way. The garage was cool, smelling faintly of detergent and tires. Light came through the small windows, thin and grey. Ben's car sat in the driveway beyond the open door, gleaming like it knew its owner loved it more than people. He stepped inside, arms crossed. "All right, let's get this over with." I turned, leaned against the workbench and studied him. You think you and Jake can shuffle money around this neighborhood forever. You think Lauren will protect you because you bring her clients. But you forgot something. This town eats its own. She'll throw you under the bus the second she senses heat. You're bluffing. Maybe. Want to test it? His jaw tightened. Delete the recording, Emma. I took a step forward. He matched it, close enough that I could smell the cologne. That smell had been in my dining room last night, mixed with laughter and champagne. It hit me wrong. Ben, I said softly, I think you believe you can intimidate me. Let's fix that. And I slapped him. Clean, quick. The sound bounced off the concrete like a hand clap. He froze, one hand hovering near his cheek. You need to calm down, he said. I am calm, I said. You're the one shaking. I'm calling Jake. Go ahead. Tell him his wife just found his off-book banker. Tell him she has audio of you admitting it. Tell him Lauren will hear it next. His throat worked. You wouldn't. You don't know me? He turned toward the door, muttering something low. I followed. When he reached his car, I stopped him with one hand on the bumper. You like this thing, right? You wax it every Sunday. What are you doing? I dragged my house key across the corner of his rear bumper. A thin screech cut through the air, bright and ugly. His eyes went wide. Are you out of your mind? That sound, I said, voice steady. That's interest accruing. You just vandalized. Finish that sentence and I'll tell Lauren exactly what you said about her controlling nature. I'll quote you, word for word. Guess how fast that spreads through Maple Ridge. He stared at me, breathing hard, hands balled at his sides. Then he looked at the scratch, tiny, barely visible unless you were close, and swore under his breath. You're crazy, he muttered, sliding into the driver's seat. No, I said, I'm precise. He started the engine. You'll regret this. Probably not. He drove off fast, tires whispering against the pavement. Across the street, Tessa stood on her porch, pretending to water a potted fern. Her phone was angled just slightly toward me. Perfect. Let her film. Let her send the clip to Lauren. The neighborhood loved evidence almost as much as gossip. I went back inside, shut the door, and exhaled slowly. My hand stung, but not in a bad way. It was proof of contact, of movement, of a line crossed and not regretted. Jake's iPad sat on the counter, still glowing with message previews. I picked it up. Notifications bloomed like weeds, half from clients, half from Lauren. Then one thread caught my eye. Lauren, Jake, we can't wait any longer. She's unstable. If we time the refinance before she figures it out, the house will be safe. Safe for whom? I scrolled. Jake. She's fine. She's just emotional. I'll calm her down after dinner. Lauren. Don't let her near the paperwork. Get her to sign the consent form. Tell her it's routine. I stared at the screen. The little blue bubbles might as well have been a confession. They weren't just humoring Jake. They were plotting around me. My anniversary dinner wasn't spontaneous cruelty. It was step one in a campaign. Humiliate me publicly, frame me as volatile, slide documents under my nose, then seal me out. I set the iPad down carefully, because if I dropped it, that would feel like losing control, and control was the only thing I had left. Out the window, a line of clouds drifted above the trimmed roofs of Maple Ridge. Perfect lawns, perfect hedges, perfect secrets. My phone buzzed again. Text from Jake. Everything good? Ben said he dropped by. I looked at the words until they blurred. Then I typed back, everything's great, just tying up loose ends. He sent a thumbs-up emoji. I smiled at the screen. Loose ends. Exactly. Upstairs, the walk-in closet gaped open, half my clothes already in suitcases from the last, maybe I'll take that Milan job conversation we'd had months ago. Back then, I'd hesitated. I'd said things like, but what about the mortgage? And, we'd have to rent out the house. He'd said, it's cute that you think you could handle living overseas alone. I ran a hand along the suitcase zipper. Cute isn't a word I mind anymore. It just means underestimation, which is fuel. Outside, a car door slammed. Tessa's, probably. I imagined her already texting Lauren. Something happened at Emma's. Ben looked freaked. Good, let them build their own suspense. I sat at the vanity, opened my planner, and started a new page titled Steps. 1. Money, done. 2. Lauren, warned. 3. Ben, recorded. 4. Jake, next. I wrote the fourth line slowly, deliberately, in neat print. My handwriting looked surprisingly steady. From the hall came the faint tick of the clock we'd bought on a weekend trip years ago, back when we thought joint purchases were romantic instead of tactical. I listened to it, steady as a metronome, counting seconds between now and the moment I'd flip this entire neighborhood story on its head. Tomorrow morning, I thought. That's when I start taking it all. Then I capped my pen, closed the planner, and smiled into the quiet. By morning, the neighborhood had already chosen sides. You could feel it in the way people waved. 2 fingers instead of 4, a little too cheerful, like they were performing civility for hidden cameras. Maple Ridge runs on optics, not truth. You can ruin someone's reputation faster than their credit score if you give the right woman something juicy to whisper over a latte. I gave them plenty. Ben must have told Jake what happened, because when I came downstairs, Jake was pacing near the kitchen island, phone in hand, looking more animated than usual. The kind of angry that still thinks it's charming. Emma, what the hell happened yesterday? Good morning, I said, opening the fridge. Ben said you... He lowered his voice, scratched his car. I poured orange juice. Interesting. Did he also mention the part where he tried to threaten me in our garage? Jake ran a hand through his hair. You're exaggerating. He told me you slapped him. I sipped. Then one of us has a more impressive memory. Do you realize what you've done? He said, voice rising. Ben is my lender contact. He helps me float closings. You just sabotaged a pipeline. Maybe don't build pipelines that leak. He slammed the counter. You think this is a joke? No, I said, calm. I think it's a lesson. He stared at me for a long moment, like he didn't recognize me. You're losing it. Seriously. Lauren said... I cut him off. Lauren said I'm unstable. You should tell her that copying messages onto a company iPad isn't smart, especially the ones about refinancing the house behind my back. His face paled in that quiet telltale way, just the brief tightening around the mouth, the half blink. You went through my iPad. You left it on the counter. I walked through my own kitchen. That's not trespassing. Those messages were private. Sure, I said. Just like your texts with Amber were professional. Everything's professional when you say it, right? He opened his mouth, closed it, and finally stepped back. You can't touch that money. It's marital property. I smiled. Correction. It was joint property. Then you tried to trick me into signing it away. Now it's safely mine. Dana wouldn't. Dana would. Dana did. He blinked again, like he couldn't process it. You froze my card. I nodded. Guess you'll have to network your way to lunch. He ran both hands down his face and laughed. A sharp, humorless sound. Unbelievable. You always have to control everything. You're impossible. Funny, I said. That's exactly what you told Amber, isn't it? She's impossible, but she pays the bills. The look that crossed his face confirmed it. Oh, don't worry, I continued. I'm not mad. I'm just reorganizing. Reorganizing what? Your empire. He stepped closer, lowering his voice again. You're not thinking clearly, Em. You're angry, and that's when you make mistakes. Let's just sit down, talk it through like adults. Maybe you take a break. Go stay with Claire for a few days, clear your head. I think you'd prefer that, I said. Gives you time to doctor documents and play the poor husband whose wife lost it. You sound paranoid. And you sound like a man who underestimates the wrong person. I walked past him toward the door, grabbing my keys. He called after me. Where are you going? To do something you should have done years ago, I said. Tell the truth, loudly. Maple Ridge's local cafe, Hearth and Grind, was morning headquarters for the neighborhood's social economy. The walls were faux rustic, the pastries overpriced, and the Wi-Fi strong enough for gossip to travel at light speed. I ordered a latte and sat where everyone could see me. That was the point. Tessa was already there with two of the Pilates regulars, pretending not to stare. Her phone lay face down, ready to record if anything interesting happened. Perfect. Lauren walked in 10 minutes later, wearing a cream blazer and the smile of a woman who believes in damage control. When she saw me, she hesitated, then came over. "Emma, we need to talk." "We are talking." "Privately." "No," I said, smiling. "Publicly works better." Her jaw tightened. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but humiliating yourself isn't helping anyone." "Actually, it's very helpful," I said. "Transparency is healthy." Tessa's table had gone completely silent. I leaned forward, voice just loud enough. "Did you tell Jake to trick me into signing refinance papers, or was that your idea alone?" Lauren blinked. "Excuse me?" "Because I have screenshots. You're not good at deleting messages, Lauren." She laughed once. High, sharp, unconvincing. "You're making yourself look unstable." "There's that word again," I said. "You use it every time a woman stops playing along." "Emma, you thought humiliating me at dinner would make me too embarrassed to fight back, but you miscalculated. You should have picked someone less observant." Her voice dropped. "If you keep doing this, Jake will sue you." "For what?" I said. "Knowing how to read?" People were definitely listening now. A few phones discreetly angled toward us. Lauren noticed. Her smile flickered. She reached for her bag. "You're done," she hissed quietly. I smiled. "No, Lauren, you are." By the time I got back home, Jake's car was gone. Good. I needed space to finish setting the trap. On the kitchen table, I spread the documents. Bank transfers, text screenshots, mortgage details, everything organized into neat folders. Years of being meticulous finally paid off. I wasn't just angry. I was documented. At 2:45 p.m., I sent 3 emails. One to the Regional Real Estate Ethics Board, one to Maple Ridge Realty's broker, and one to the HOA president, including screenshots of Ben and Jake's float messages that could easily pass as client fund manipulation. I didn't accuse anyone outright. I just raised concerns. The kind of concerns that ignite investigations and freeze licenses. Then, for flair, I blind copied Lauren. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Emma." "Ben." "You think this is funny? You're nuking Jake's business. You're hurting yourself too." "That's the thing about leverage," I said. "It doesn't need to be funny. It just needs to be effective." "You'll ruin his career." "He did that." "You could just walk away. Take your money. Move on." "I'm not walking away, Ben. I'm making sure the ground behind me collapses." He was silent for a beat. Then, "You really slapped me." "I know," I said. "You deserved worse, but I'm civilized." He hung up. Good. By late afternoon, the air outside hummed with that low, uneasy energy that comes before a thunderstorm, or gossip. Across the street, I saw Tessa and 2 other wives standing near the mailbox cluster, whispering in exaggerated secrecy. When they saw me, they straightened, smiled too wide, and waved. I waved back. The gesture felt like a silent chess move. Then I heard the garage door. "Jake." He walked in holding his phone, face taut. "What did you do?" "Be specific." "Lauren's losing her mind. Ben's panicking." "You emailed the brokerage." I raised concerns. "You can't just accuse people without proof." "I have proof. Screenshots, transaction logs, audio." He blinked. "Audio?" "Ben came over yesterday. He talked. I listened." "Jesus, Emma." "Careful," I said. "You're close to a banned word." He looked at me like I'd turned into something unrecognizable. "You'd destroy me over one mistake." "One mistake?" I said softly. No, Jake. Over 7 years of them. You're not thinking straight. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said, but you'll regret it longer. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I'm finishing it. Finishing what? I met his eyes. Your illusion. He laughed, trying to recover ground. You think you can win? You can't outplay me, Emma. Everyone here knows me. They like me. They liked you, I corrected. Past tense. Check your phone. He hesitated, thumbed through notifications. I watched the color drain from his face as he read the new messages. The brokerage suspension pending review, the HOA inquiry, Lauren's frantic fix this text. What did you do? He whispered. I told the truth, I said. He stared at me for a long time, then exhaled. You don't have to make it ugly. Too late, I said. You already did. He turned toward the door, muttering something under his breath, but I wasn't listening anymore. My heart wasn't pounding. It was steady, almost rhythmic, like the hum of a machine running exactly as designed. As he reached for the handle, I added, Oh, and Jake, you might want to check your email too. The closing accounts for the Brookline listing are under review. Looks like your commission's on hold. He froze. You're unbelievable. I've been told that, I said. He slammed the door behind him so hard the picture frames rattled. I sat down on the couch, folded my hands, and looked out the window. The clouds had finally broken, sunlight slanting across the perfect lawns. Sprinklers hissed like applause. For the first time in 7 years, the silence in that house felt earned. And somewhere down the street, someone's phone buzzed with a new notification. Subject, ethics complaint, Maple Ridge Realty. I smiled. The show had just begun. The next morning smelled like wet grass and scandal. I woke up before sunrise, the air thick with that strange quiet that comes after everyone in a small community reads the same piece of gossip, but pretends they haven't. My inbox looked like a slot machine. Replies, questions, can we talk? Messages from people who had avoided eye contact with me for years suddenly needing clarity. Jake hadn't come home. His car wasn't in the driveway. That suited me fine. The longer he stayed gone, the more time I had to finish what I started. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and started reading. The realty board had already suspended his license, pending investigation. That's bureaucratic language for, we think you're guilty, but want the paperwork to match. The brokerage's HR rep had written something syrupy. We hope to resolve this matter swiftly and fairly. Translation, we're throwing you to the wolves but trying to look compassionate while we do it. I forwarded the email to Lauren. No message, no subject, just the forward. Less than 3 minutes later, my phone rang. Emma, what have you done? Her voice trembled in a way that was new. The Queen of Maple Ridge had cracks in her crown. I didn't do anything illegal, if that's what you're asking, I said, sipping my coffee. Just shared information. You know, the kind you and Jake were already sharing behind my back. You're ruining his career. He ruined it the night he decided to make me the punchline of his success story. You're punishing him because he hurt your feelings. Funny, you call it feelings, I call it accountability. You're not thinking long-term. You'll destroy yourself too. Lauren, I said, keeping my voice soft, I've already left you all once. I can do it again. But this time, I'm not leaving quietly. She exhaled, a sharp sound through clenched teeth. You're vindictive. I'm thorough. You'll regret this. Maybe, but you'll be the one cleaning it up. Have a great day. I hung up before she could respond. The sunlight coming through the window caught the edges of the kitchen counter. The house looked spotless, curated, like a real estate listing for someone else's dream life. I realized it had never actually felt like mine. Every piece of furniture was chosen to match Jake's image. Even the throw pillows had been staged for guests. The whole place felt like a showroom, and I was done living in a showroom. Around 10, I pulled into the Maple Ridge Realty parking lot. The glass doors reflected the bright morning sky, all blue calm over chaos. Inside, the receptionist looked up from her computer, startled. "Emma, I didn't expect—" "I won't be long," I said. Ben's office door was closed, blinds drawn, perfect. I pushed it open without knocking. He was on the phone, gesturing wildly. His voice was too loud, his tone too desperate. "I swear it's a misunderstanding. It's just between friends. Look, I can show you the transfer logs. Yes, I know, it looks bad, but—" He looked up and froze when he saw me. "I'll call you back," he muttered and hung up. "What are you doing here?" "Returning something." I set a manila envelope on his desk. He eyed it like it might bite him. "What's that?" "The audio from yesterday, the one where you admitted to hiding money transfers. I thought you'd appreciate knowing exactly how bad you sound." "You're bluffing," I shrugged. "Check the waveform." He hesitated, then slid the recording out, played it on his computer. The sound filled the room, his own voice smug and casual, saying words like float and hush and she won't notice. He stopped it halfway through. "You can't use this in court." "I'm not taking you to court." "Then what do you want?" "I want you to remember what fear feels like. I want you to walk into every meeting wondering if the person across the table already heard your confession." He swallowed hard. "You're insane." "No," I said. "I'm finished being polite." I turned and walked out before he could respond. The look on his face followed me all the way to the parking lot. That afternoon, the storm finally broke, not a real one, but the social kind. Lauren's name appeared on the Maple Ridge Facebook group. "Important announcement. Please read." I didn't have to open it to know what it said. I could picture every word. "It saddens me to see false accusations. Jake has always been a pillar of this community. Let's not spread negativity." What she didn't expect was what came next. Comment after comment, neighbors chiming in. "Tessa." I was there that night. He definitely said it. "Mark D. I've heard things about his listings too." Courtney S. "Didn't he overprice our place and blame us when it didn't sell?" Lauren had always ruled the HOA threads, but now her little kingdom was eating itself alive. Watching that digital unraveling was more satisfying than I'd expected. By 5 p.m., the post was gone. Deleted. But the screenshots were already making their rounds in group chats. Maple Ridge never forgets. At 6, Jake finally came home. The garage door opened slow, like it was dreading what waited inside. He walked in without looking at me. His shirt was wrinkled, tie gone, eyes ringed with exhaustion. "I lost everything," he said, almost to himself. "Not everything," I said. "You still have Lauren. And Amber. Maybe she'll co-sign your next lease." He glared at me. "You think this is justice? You think destroying me fixes anything?" "I think it balances the scales." He dropped into a chair, head in his hands. "I can't believe you'd do this." "That's because you never believed I could do anything without you." He looked up, expression brittle. "You could have just left." "I did. The night you called me a mistake." He stood, taking a step toward me. "You're enjoying this?" "Enjoyment implies leisure," I said. "This is work." "What do you want, Emma? Say it. You want me to beg? Apologize? You want to see me crawling?" I studied him, this man who once convinced me that charisma was love. He looked smaller now, not weaker, exactly, but exposed. "No," I said quietly. "I just want you to live in the house you built, every corner, every echo. That's punishment enough." He shook his head. "You'll regret it when you realize you burned both of us." "Maybe," I said, "but at least I was holding the match." He grabbed his keys and left again, door slamming behind him. The sound reverberated through the kitchen like a punctuation mark. I didn't chase him. I didn't pack. Not yet. Instead, I opened the patio door and stepped out into the humid evening. Across the street, porch lights blinked on one by one, the neighborhood watching from behind curtains. For the first time, I didn't care. I took a deep breath. The air smelled like rain and cut grass, fresh, electric, clean. Then I heard it, the faint crunch of tires on gravel. A car slowing down in front of our house. Jake's car, headlights still on. He sat there, engine idling, staring at the front door like it was the edge of a cliff. Then the engine roared and the car shot forward, not toward me, but out of Maple Ridge entirely, taillights fading into the dark. I let out a long breath. He was gone. For now. Inside, I opened my laptop one more time. The last email waited unsent, to my Milan contact, accepting the job offer I'd turned down months ago. Subject, ready to start. I hit send. Then I closed the computer, turned off the lights, and stood in the dark kitchen, listening to the faint buzz of sprinklers outside. The same sprinklers that had hissed across manicured lawns every morning for 7 years. Tomorrow, someone would gossip about me. Someone would pity him. Someone would wonder who was right. None of it would matter. Because tomorrow, I'd be on a plane, and Maple Ridge would keep pretending to be perfect without me. But tonight was mine. I poured the last of the coffee into a mug, stepped onto the porch, and watched the sky turn violet. Behind me, the house stood silent, stripped of pretense. Ahead, thunder rolled somewhere far off, like applause carried by wind, and I smiled. Not the polite kind, not the practiced one Jake used for clients, but a real one, sharp and quiet and free. The show was over, and I was still standing. The morning I left Maple Ridge, the sun rose soft and gold, all polite light over manicured lawns and carefully trimmed hedges. The kind of morning that pretends nothing ever happens here. No betrayal, no unraveling, no quiet revolutions in kitchens. I stood in the doorway with one suitcase, my favorite coffee mug in hand, and the soft whir of sprinklers marking time like a metronome. Everything looked the same. The neighborhood's illusion of perfection held steady. Mailboxes still gleamed, flags still waved. The HOA would be proud. But if you listened closely, you could hear something else underneath it, an unease, like the air just before a storm. Maple Ridge had new gossip now, and I was its epicenter. The phone on the counter buzzed again. Jake. I didn't answer. He'd been calling since dawn. 8 missed calls, 4 texts that swung between anger and pleading. We can fix this, Em. You've made your point. Please. I deleted them without reading further. His words meant nothing now. They were currency from a bankrupt man. I took one last slow walk through the house. Every room felt hollow in a different way. The living room, with its designer couch we could never sit on because clients dropped by. The kitchen, gleaming like a showroom. The bedroom, where the air still held the faint smell of his cologne and the silence of everything he never said. My laptop bag waited on the counter. Inside was the folder labeled closure, which wasn't metaphorical at all. It held printed records, screenshots, copies of his texts, and transactions. Not because I needed them anymore, but because I liked the symmetry. The same files he thought would bury me were now archived as souvenirs. The doorbell rang. I half expected Lauren, mascara running, voice trembling with performative forgiveness. But when I opened the door, it was Tessa. She wore her usual yoga outfit, but her eyes looked nervous, darting, almost guilty. "Hey, Emma," she said softly. "Can I come in for a second?" I considered it, then nodded. "Sure, step into the ruins." She winced. "I'm not here to pick sides." "Everyone says that," I said, "right before they do." "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. About dinner, about how everyone acted." She twisted the strap of her gym bag between her hands. "We all saw it. Nobody said anything. I should have." "That would have been brave," I said. "Bravery's in short supply around here." Her eyes flicked toward the suitcases. "You're really leaving?" Really? I heard he lost his job. Suspended, I said. He'll spin it into a sabbatical. She hesitated, then leaned in, voice low. People are saying Lauren's the one who pushed him to refinance without telling you. She's trying to make it sound like she didn't know what was going on. Of course she is, I said. Lauren doesn't make mistakes, she delegates them. Tessa gave a small laugh, uneasy but genuine. Honestly, it's chaos out there. The board's calling an emergency meeting. Everyone's turning on everyone. Good, I said. Let them feel alive for once. She looked at me for a long second, maybe waiting for some grand emotional collapse. When I didn't provide it, she nodded slowly. You're different now. I was always this person, I said. I just used to hide it behind good manners. She smiled faintly, unsure if it was safe to. Well, good luck, Emma. Thanks. Tell Lauren I said hi, loudly. When the door closed behind her, I exhaled. The sound filled the quiet house like a final chord. By noon, I was driving past the Maple Ridge, a community of excellence sign, the one Jake loved to brag about in every listing. The letters shimmered in the sun, smug and metallic. Behind me, somewhere in those perfect cul-de-sacs, phones were buzzing, people whispering, threads spinning out faster than anyone could control. The plan had worked better than I expected. Jake's brokerage had suspended him indefinitely pending ethical review. Ben was under internal audit. Lauren had resigned from the HOA board for personal reasons. And Maple Ridge had a brand new addiction, speculation. They'd pick it apart for weeks, maybe months. Who knew what? Who lied? Who laughed? My name would pass through every mouth in town, each version sharper or softer, depending on who was speaking. That was fine. Let them talk. I'd already won the only part that mattered. At a stoplight, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Emma. Jake's voice, low, hoarse. I thought we were done talking. I needed to hear you. Everything's gone. Lauren won't take my calls. Clients are cancelling. Ben's blaming me. His voice broke off for a second. You took everything. No, I said. I just took my share. You lost yours all on your own. You can't hate me forever. I don't, I said. Hate requires energy. You're background noise now. He let out a sharp breath. You won't get away with this. I'll rebuild. I hope you do, I said. Maybe next time you'll build something real. Then I hung up and blocked his number. The light turned green. I drove on. The airport was nearly empty when I arrived. Weekday lull, travellers scattered like half-forgotten thoughts. My ticket to Milan sat on my phone, crisp and digital. It had been waiting months for me to find my courage. Turns out all I needed was betrayal as a motivator. Security, gate, boarding, all blurred. The rhythm of travel felt clean, anonymous, like wiping a whiteboard. When the plane took off, I didn't look back out the window. I didn't need to. Maple Ridge was already receding, fading into a story I'd someday tell carefully, edited for humor and distance. I slept most of the flight, dreamless, calm. Milan greeted me with noise, car horns, espresso steam, the thrum of a city that doesn't care about your history. The air smelled like heat and motion. I took a cab to the temporary flat my company had arranged. The driver didn't speak much English, which was perfect. Silence had weight, but this was a different kind, new, clean, without judgment. When we pulled up to the building, I looked at my reflection in the window. The woman staring back looked the same, technically, same hair, same eyes, but there was something sharper in her expression. Not cruel, just awake. The doorman helped with my suitcase. Inside, the apartment was small but bright, with wide windows and the hum of the city outside. I set my bags down, walked straight to the balcony, and looked out at the skyline. Somewhere below, a couple argued in Italian, voices rising and falling like music. A Vespa buzzed past. Life kept moving. I felt something I hadn't felt in years, peace without guilt.